Welcome to the Golf Coach Podcast. Will, how you going, brother?
Yeah, good, Toby. Been a while since obviously we first spoke about this, but yeah, glad to finally be on here.
For those listening at home, Will is a very good friend of mine. I would say that we talk 3 or 4 times a week at least, right?
Yeah,
And
very often.
I've been pestering for coming on for a long time. I listen to the podcast, and I'm glad to have you on here. So, for context, right, the situation here, Will is the head teaching professional at Manly Golf Club and a teaching professional at Narrabeen Driving Range at the Northern Beaches. I knew Will when I was the assistant golf professional at Manly Golf Club. I've since moved 2 hours south from there, and I got my own teaching place down here now, and obviously do my online stuff and live out of Sydney. But Will and I contact in regular contact. Probably the person I speak to the most from Manly Golf Club. But hey, before we get into it, how is things at MJC going, mate? How is Manly going? How's it been, the head teaching professional there?
It's good. It's been busy. Obviously, as you know, I was working a little bit more in the shop till the last 6 months or so. So just kind of reined back on that, trying to focus on my coaching, which has been going well.
Yeah.
A lot of keen golfers on the Northern Beaches, as you would know. So, been enjoying it. Been a good change.
And Will's a great golf coach. Will coaches a lot of the elite kids around the area. There's probably two coaches that look after them. I'd imagine one being Billy Watson and yourself. And I've been pestering Will to get out of the golf shop for some serious time. He's a wasted golf coach out there handing scorecards. So it's great to have you being a full-time golf coach, brother. I appreciate you coming on. Hey, you've got an addition coming to the family soon, huh? What's going on there?
Yeah, little Will coming in. Well, I don't know if it's a Will or a Kiralee, my wife. Don't know if it's a boy or a girl, but yeah, just under 3 weeks we'll have a new addition to the family, which will be, I'm sure, as you know, a massive change to our life. But something I'm really looking forward to.
It's great. It'll change you. I was only talking to you today about it. I was thinking for people out there who are parents, for some reason, as soon as you have kids, you become light sleepers because you're used to kind of waking up to them. So it's, yeah, mate, you'll love it. You're ready. You and kids are ready. You both are really ready. And hopefully get those renos done at the house before baby comes. Hey,
Yeah.
But before we get kind of stuck into some serious stuff, right? Tell me, how the Roosters looking for this year?
I hope pretty good. People might think we have the sombrero, but I think every year I'm always very, very hopeful for the Roosters. Trent Robinson has done a great job since he's been there, so not too many years you miss out on the final to a top 4 spot. So always start the season with high hopes. They like to get off to a slow start always. But he's pretty good at kind of bringing them together by the pointy end of the season. So
He is, yeah. So for the international listeners, we're talking here about NRL, rugby league. International listeners that are listening to this are probably thinking, oh yeah, rugby. But we have 2 codes of rugby in Australia, rugby and rugby league. And Will is a sport nut, and we both share love for NRL just as much as we do for golf. And he supports the Roosters. And to kind of put it into context into international teams, they're kind of like the Manchester United, I guess, of the old days, like the old Chicago Bulls. They're one of the big teams of the comp with some big operators. But do you think Brandon Smith is the right option at 9?
I would have loved Sam Burrows to stay, to be honest. I like the type of footy he played. I actually gave him a golf lesson about a year or so ago before I went up to the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
But I was a big fan of him. So I thought he came on, when he came on, had a lot of impact. So I would have loved to see him stay. I'm sure that would have been paying him a lot less than Brandon Smith as well. So I think Brandon's got the overs for sure.
I reckon for me, looking at it for the Aussie listeners here, is that I think they've just got the balance a little bit wrong. I don't think Brandon should be in there at 9. There's smarter people than me. Obviously, I'm just a golf coach, but not an NRL coach. But I just think that his delivery, I think he's more of a lock or like a coming off the bench. I just think what the guys in strike power the NRL have got, in the Roosters, have got, you just need someone just in there just giving the ball. Getting the ball and staying fit.
I think Verrills a little bit more like a Damien Cook, kind of get out dummy half, good passer, good service. Just kind of get on the front foot straight away. So, I don't know.
Brandon Smith,
Brandon
I
Smith.
know he's a big listener of the podcast, right? He's a big golf nerd and he's a big listener of the podcast. And, he's got hands on hips after 5 minutes, mate. That guy is sucking them in. He's I've got better cardio. Hey, so people have seen the headline for this, right? And I want to talk to you about, you teach a lot of kids, right, from very varying ages, right? And I want to talk to you about college golf and your history in college golf. I think that you really took on that well, so I'm really excited to kind of dive into that. I've got a few questions that I have for you because I obviously didn't attend college in the States. But at Manly Golf Club there, one of the prestigious golf clubs in Sydney, right? Their private golf club. How many kids do you coach there? Like, what's the setup?
We have quite a few kids who obviously come through the weekly programs. It's like Tuesday, Sunday, Saturday clinics, etc. And then probably have about 10 to 12 kids who are locked with like a designated time every week or fortnight. So some of the more serious golfers, I guess, who have aspirations of playing or really improving their game. So
Yeah.
I guess that kind of covers all areas. Kids as young as 6, 7, through to some late teens, kids who are really trying to make a career in golf, go to college. One of my students has just signed for somewhere to leave middle this year, so he finished high school here last year. But as you know, there's been quite a few kids from Manly actually go over to play college golf in America. So
Yeah.
I'd say at all as far as I'm aware, I'd say we've produced quite a few college golfers from Manly Golf Club over the last 10 or so years.
I would agree. Even when we were there, like the ones that were pumping out, and a very good success rate of players getting really good. And I think a lot of it was just kind of down to the environment. A lot of keen guys. I think they really gelled well together. Lots of games, spending lots of time together. And, lots of college kids have come out of the system when we were there for sure, or when I was there. And obviously you're still there. Now, when I was there, though, they used to have a huge Saturday cadet program that I helped build there with Mr. Gavin Fish. That's not going as strong there, is it, Norm?
COVID put a little bit of a dent to that. And probably shouldn't say too much, but it's on the revitalise. So,
yes,
actually going to get a little bit of a kick ahead. The club's been very good, put a little bit more money towards the juniors now for this next year. So, had a few meetings about that the last couple of months, but that Saturday clinic will be going, every week now. I've just organised for an elite junior clinic every Friday funded by the club. Which, given obviously we're getting a lot more good juniors now, so that's something they've just decided to put a bit more money towards rather than just those cadet kids we used to have. I feel they kind of got lost once they got to like a 15, 16-year-old age and, they weren't in that cadet program any longer. They kind of had nowhere to go. So, clubs have been good enough to come to the table with that. So,
like a bit of a bridging thing.
Yeah, very excited for that.
Yeah, because when I was there, obviously I started it with Gavin Fish and Richard Evans there, and you got to have good support around you, some good older heads that that can help you run the program. And one of the things I learned, I talked to some young coaches last week about this, was just get your hands on getting started coaching juniors, because I'm not going to say I shouldn't say you can test stuff, but you can learn a lot, because you tell a kid to do something, it'll do it. There's no general resistance or any I guess scarring from a certain type of listening. You say do this and they'll do it, and you get to kind of experiment and learn how things happen and help. So working with kids is a really, really good place to learn as a coach, because you're obviously quite comfortable as well. And I use the term that they're quite bendy, and you can trial lots of stuff with them. So yeah, I hope it really kicks off.
Great thing. They're very open to change. They just want to get better. A lot of, not everyone, but people who've played the game for a long time, very stuck in, I like doing it this way. They're not open to, and obviously they have physical limitations, etc., which you've got to work around, but kids have a lot less of that. They're a lot more open to listen. If you say do this, they're going to do it. So probably not as much pushback as you may get with someone who's played golf for 30, 40, 50 years.
I would agree. And do you think that's because they're more flexible because they haven't done something as much and their motion's not as repetitive?
yeah, even just simple stuff like sitting at a desk for 40, 50 hours a week.
Mm.
Obviously, that's going to change what you can and can't do, injuries, a whole bunch of different things. Obviously, kids have other problems with growing at different rates, their body being able to keep up with, constantly changing. Kids grow 3 inches in, a very short period of time. It's, growth
Yeah.
spurts and whatnot. So other challenges they do have where they might lose their swing going through those growth spurts or whatnot. But I do think they're very open, those kids who want to get better, to
Yeah.
take on as much advice as possible. And I'm very happy to, put in the work as well, which is obviously one of the great things about working with kids.
What have you changed since you started working with kids to how you coach kids now? Is there any kind of key things that stand out to you that how you approach it differently?
I guess I kind of started doing with kids with you for the most part. Like that was kind of
Mm.
my introduction to golf coaching. We both run the kids clinic,
Yeah.
different groups, but same time on a Tuesday, Thursday afternoon down there at Manly. So
Yeah.
um, I mean, very fortunate to do that, but kind of got thrown in the deep end a little bit where I hadn't
Mm.
really done any coaching. I'm sure that happens to a lot of trainee golfers. Um,
Sorry, mate.
so I've definitely, I would say, hopefully improved over that time.
Yeah.
I quite like the junior coaching, so I've done a fair bit of the TPI stuff. So I've done level 2, level 3 TPI.
Yeah.
And I guess that just opened you up to how you're going to go from the early stages of golfers' development all the way through.
Mm.
And although parents may not necessarily see this until you explain it or might not agree, lots of golf in the early part of 5, 6-year-old kids is not playing golf. It's learning other skills like throwing, kicking, striking skills
Yeah.
that they can transition into golf rather than hitting golf balls at the range for an hour straight and then getting blisters and then they don't want to come back anymore. So I think just learning that kind of stuff throughout, both education and my own kind of research.
I've seen you with that stuff with the TPI. With the kids, the TPI and kids, I've seen it. And so can you explain a little bit more? So when you coach like littlies, right? Are you moving away from golf specific stuff? Like what's the ratio?
Lots of it non-golf almost. Like lots of it are just, as I said, kind of an easy example would be like a distance control would be throwing a beanbag into a hoop. So they're learning to, figure out how far they need to take their arm back, take it through to generate a certain amount of distance. Okay, so obviously it's very hard at a young age, lack of strength, even like coordination to be able to hit a really good chip shot, but learning that distance control and throwing a beanbag or an object into a hula hoop or whatever it may be, they're learning a distance control skill that they can transition then into chipping when they get a little bit older and I guess develop a few more skills. So yeah, lots of it non-golf, but with, I guess, learning skills that they can transition into golf.
I tell you what, I understand that definitely. And I got two boys, right? I got a nearly 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. My 2-year-old picks up his little clubs and he's got a little pivot. Like he whacks it, like whacks the ball into the screen, right? And he just kind of, you can see him engage his core and he rotates, turns his body to about 90 degrees and then whips it through, right? And it's like in one unit. Like it's really good. And my other 4-year-old doesn't generate energy the same. He kind of chops up and down at it. And you can see that they're both kind of looking at this object on the ground differently and hitting the ball differently. But one of the things I noticed, I don't know what you think on this, right, is but if I teach a lot of kids now, it's just in my one-off sessions, right? If the parents are willing to kind of take them into the hour session or 45-minute session I do with the kids one-on-one, it's that if a child can't radial deviate their wrists, right? So like for the people listening who don't understand what radial deviation is, it's like if you hold your thumbs out in front of your golf grip and your thumbs come up towards your head, right? And if I can't get a child to say hinge that club up and lift that and hinge it up and lift it up, and let's say even get to left arm level to the ground or lead arm level to the ground, and at least create a 90-degree angle with that shaft. Not that I'm looking for 90 in perspective, right? But if a child can't hinge it that way, they can't use a golf club yet. Do you agree?
Yeah, 100%. I think probably, lots of people just give their kid a cut down golf club or A club that's way too big for them, thinking they'll get 3, 4, 5 years out of it. But that's the worst thing you could do for a kid. Like you'd rather be too small, too light, where they can actually move it and be able to have some control over it. Once it gets too heavy, you're just doing nothing good for a kid.
Yeah.
And that can be up to like 12-year-old kids, 13, 14-year-old kids who have an extra stiff shaft that their dad has given them or whatnot, and they're swinging it incorrectly. They're not learning to generate speed based on having poor fitted equipment for them. So I think it goes from like very, very young kids and their mum or dad, whoever takes them down, through to 14, 15-year-old kids who don't have the correct equipment as well.
And I reckon you could look at some golfers, right? And if you can't hinge that club up properly, so let's call it like we're using again, like if you're holding the club out in front of you and you're using it like a hammer, going up, down, up, down, up, down with your wrists, right, in an isolated position. You watch a child try to get that club who can't hinge it up. The first thing they do is they retract their trail arm really, really far behind them, and they kind of pull their right elbow, like trail elbow, really, really far behind them, and their wrists get all tangled up, and their left wrist gets in a lot of flexion, their lead wrist, and they just can't get the club. They can't deliver the club back down to the ball. So if you've got a kid, and this is just my experience, right? I'm no expert in teaching kids. I've actually taught some high quality kids, but I don't teach them regularly, at the very, very young age. But if you need to teach them how to get that strength, to how to deviate that club like they're using a hammer. Don't you reckon?
Yeah, for sure. As you said, they don't do that. They'll do something else. Might be bending their elbow or trying to find other ways to get that club up where they have a little bit more strength. Where they, the wrist, obviously they haven't developed that strength. They'll just bend their left arm a lot, or as you said, just pull that right elbow back behind them, and get no height in the backswing.
It's like they try to, like I use the terminology, don't lift the club up in the air, but set the club up in the air. So, set it by, like if you actually think about your mechanics, if you hold the hammer in your right hand, right, you don't actually completely fully lift the hammer up. Your top part of your hand's actually pushing on top of that handle, and your bottom 3 fingers are helping you pick it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you need to teach a kid to be able to do that. But there you go. Bit of hot goss there, mate, for teaching the kids, coaches out there listening to this one here. Now, let's get into it. People send a headline, right? College golf. And I want to talk to you about some experiences you had and some things you would do differently and some advice from you. Which college did you go to?
Went to a place called Chico State in Northern California, so way up, about 3 hours from San Fran. So got very cool up there, very hot up there. It's an awesome little college town. I absolutely loved it. There was 50,000 students, 100,000 people lived in the town. So greatest experience of my life.
I would imagine.
Yeah, just very, very different, obviously, living in the northern beaches in Sydney.
So that was the first time moving out of home too? Obviously, I would imagine.
First time out of home, first time to America. So
and what
just pretty much packed up, had my clubs, and that was about it, and headed off.
Are you living in like a dorm room situation?
I lived in not full-on dorms. I had like my own bedroom, which shared a bathroom with one other person, and then we had a kitchen we shared with 4 people. So it's kind of like almost a little bit of a house, like a university village it was called. So not full-on dorms, but yeah, the university housing is what it essentially was.
And how old were you?
I was 21 when I went over there. So
okay.
a little bit later than most people. So I had a year off after school and then did a couple of years at uni here and then transferred over. So very different path, I guess, than what a lot of people take.
Do you think that you were more mature than at 21 to go over there than being an 18-year-old?
Yes.
Maybe
definitely. Not. Yes and no.
Yeah.
Probably led to more possibilities in terms of going out and stuff, which may not have always been the best of my golf. Where if I was 18, obviously over 21 drinking over there, so it may not have been as easy for me. But yeah, like I would say I was mature, but at the same time, in terms of as a golfer, I would say I started kind of on the late side. So I didn't play a lot of tournament golf till I was 18.
Yeah.
Where obviously a lot of kids now are playing tournament golf from 10, 12, like all the time. I never did that. I was, way more cricket, rugby, soccer, AFL, tennis, like a whole bunch of different stuff. I was never, golf was kind of the one and only sport from, 14, 15, like lots of kids.
We get that in Australia, but we don't play a lot of tournament golf. And you and Porter's doing a great job with that, right? He's doing a great job at providing more tournaments for kids to play in. What was the most exciting when you got over there? Like, what was the takeaway food you were smashing the most when you were there?
Mexican.
Mexican?
Always had a taco truck I visited very frequently.
Yes.
I couldn't believe how cheap it was over there when I went over there. I went back when the Australian dollar had a good exchange rate, so we were kind of on parity with the US at the time, and I was in a little college town. So I remember being $5.38 for burrito, which I would eat 3 nights a week, potentially, maybe more. So yeah, like it was crazy how cheap it was.
Did you put any timber on?
Yeah, definitely.
Did ya?
Yeah, I'd say a good 10 kgs for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's standard for moving out of home. That's standard. Like just moving out of home.
I think probably going out a little bit more than I should have didn't help.
Having too much fun, Norm.
Lots of burgers, lots of Mexican, lots of pizza. You go to the cafeteria, for dinner, whatever all you can eat. They had a pizza thing, like a salad bar. They had like burgers. They have whatever you wanted, and you could just get unlimited. So,
and for people listening, right? And for people listening about this, Will Flitcroft is an incredibly fit guy. He's one of the fittest guys I know now, right? And trains hard at the gym, treats nutrition really well. One of the only guys you go watch the footy and the cricket with, and he actually takes his own food there, right? He treats nutrition really, really well now. It's kind of like what we did. We all treat ourselves like an amusement park back when we were younger, and now we all treat ourselves a lot better, right?
I find it really funny that I was actually able to put on weight given how much golf I was playing. Like that always kind of looking back in hindsight. Like I was still going to the gym over there, with training sessions with the golf squad and then myself. You'd play 6, 7, 8 rounds of golf some weeks, and I was like, how have I put on all this weight? But it's not look back now, look at a photo and go, geez, you put a few kilos on back there.
But it's just, we don't understand we're very uneducated on nutrition at that age and what it is. And, it's really sad to not dive into so many topics now about it. You can go listen to the Jordan Potts episode where we talk about health in detail. But you see people that still aren't educated around nutrition and, might think they're doing the right thing by having, sausage roll and a bottle of Sprite, but they don't realize half that Sprite is actually sugar. So it doesn't matter like how much you're training and how much you're playing golf. If you're not getting the nutrition part of it right, you just can't out-train a shit diet. You just can't.
Can't out-train the bottomless fries.
No way. Oh, dude, I love fries so much, man. Hey, tell me, so what was it like when you're getting over there and you're part of a team environment playing on a team? Can you tell me about that?
Very different, I guess. Like I didn't really grow up practicing with a whole bunch of people. I used to play camera golf course a lot, and I'd just go over by myself and do my own thing.
Yeah.
And even when I was a little bit older, I had 1 or 2 guys I'd occasionally practice with, but I was never really practicing in that team environment. So
yep.
That obviously changed things a lot. And then, there's that people telling you, not 100%, but you have to practice this now. So we'd have kind of 3 group training sessions a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, essentially.
Yeah.
If we weren't playing golf, and it was like, all right, from here to here, you're doing these drills, these exercises, whatever. We're obviously at home. I did what I wanted. So not that was bad, but just more structure, I guess, around where I had to be at a certain time.
Yeah.
They're great over there with, as a student athlete, giving you the classes you need so you can get to your gym sessions, your practice, going away for tournaments, all that kind of thing. But yeah, definitely different in terms of going from practicing by yourself every day to practicing with, we had 13 guys on my team when I first started there. So
interesting.
very different.
So when it's structured, are you saying is it? If I'm not corrected, is it? It's more training over there, like performance based, than it is technical based.
Yeah, very much. I think that's probably one of the hard things for people going from overseas. Probably not as hard today as it used to be. Obviously, you and I, we both work on, teach via Skillist. So, for students now, it's easy for them to go back and forth with me when they're over there.
Yeah.
But when I was living over there, I came back once in my 2 years and had a golf lesson there. And, that was my only form of golf instruction I had as someone from Australia going over. Obviously, lots of the guys on the team had the coaches over there.
Yeah.
So they go home in their summer holidays or, on a weekend go have a golf lesson. But for me, just the way it wasn't, it's only, 13 years ago, 14 years ago. Not that long ago. But it still just wasn't as easy as it is with a platform like Skillist today to be able to get that constant communication with your coach and feedback. So a lot of kind of just trying to figure it out yourself.
I remember hearing once about when Tiger was at college, right? And I'm very much paraphrasing here. I probably heard it from someone, heard it from someone, heard it from someone, heard it from someone. But he was getting coached by Butch Harmon at the time, right? And he used to use a video camera to video himself on the practice tee, right? Practice range. But the rule was he could do that, but everyone else had to have a video camera if he was allowed to do it. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like if he got to do it, then everyone else got to do it. That was the kind of situation. Yeah. And so you see some of that really cool footage you see kind of popping around was him he'd send a VHS tape back to Butch Harmon, and then Butch Harmon would send him a VHS tape back by mail. That was the starting of, I guess, coaching via video. I can't even say the word online. So yeah, pretty bananas, right? So it was very much, so you have your coaches there who are like performance-based stuff. Are they scoring your practicing or are they measuring your practice?
At times, yeah. Like our coach was actually, I guess stats has become a much bigger thing now. I get all my kids to do stats via draw more circles, but he actually had stat sheets for us to do, and he'd go through it after every tournament. We'd have a sit-down meeting with him after every tournament. So definitely in tournaments, we'd have like a debrief after we came back with the coach. So that was kind of cool. He'd go through, what he picked up from watching us, the stats we'd given him. We had to do that every night when we got back to the hotel. So, like my coach was actually a PJ member. Lots of coaches aren't necessarily PJ members over there. They're more just like a manager figure. Yeah. So he played a little bit on the Canadian tour, and around the mini tours in America. So I guess I was fortunate from that perspective where he had played, and I guess like in some respects like a little bit about ahead of his times in terms of doing stats and whatnot. Obviously, lots of people are doing that now. Yeah. But probably back then wasn't something. You have strokes gain data, all that kind of stuff now on tour, and that's what the guys look at.
Yeah. I shared a live podcast with Stevie G about Craig Dixon from Draw More Circles has found out that the top 20 NCAA players are PGA Tour standard with their statistics.
Well, you look at the guys coming out now the last few weeks. Ludwig this week and Nick Dunlap a couple of weeks ago.
Crazy.
But I just think they're a lot more ready now than they were even 10 years ago. They're coming out ready to win.
Do you think now that the reason why is that it's just so easy for them to kind of work on their weaknesses because they're measuring it?
Yeah, I think like everything now you can measure. So, TrackMan, 3D, better stats, just coaches are better now.
Yeah.
There's so much more information out there, and kids are getting this good information from a much earlier age than they could have in the past. So, I just think the whole industry in general has got a lot better at coaching.
And it's definitely not unusual. People think about other sports, right, where it's unusual in golf with, let's take away the last few years, right, where we've seen like Matthew Wolff's, Colin Morikawa's, Victor Hovland's, Nick Dunlap's, this crazy stuff happen. But let's take that away and just even prior, just before Jordan Spieth, right, where it was super rare for someone to come out of college and be going really good. You had to kind of like earn your stripes, right, in inverted commas, right? where
I think Ricky Fowler was probably one of the last guys, to be honest.
Ricky,
Like, I remember watching him at an event in Phoenix or somewhere, and he was coming down the stretch, and he was, he had his 6 starts or whatever, 7 starts to get his card, and he was top 4 going into the last few holes, trying to just get his PGA Tour card straight out of college, which he did, and he was one of the few guys in forever to actually do it.
I think Bud Corley might have done it too, you know.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to get at there, right, is that it's not unusual in other sports when we see, I guess, physical sports. Like, let's talk about like what I can talk about Australian sports, like AFL or rugby league or rugby union or any type of other explosive sport. It's not unusual to see teenagers come in and just go gangbusters straight away. But it was unusual for golf for that to happen because there was a lot more to golf at the time. We had to kind of get out there, get comfortable being on tour and all this. But like you say, they're coming out now just super ready. But it's not unusual in other sports to have like a superstar come through, come through the ranks and just start dominating early. Don't you reckon?
I just think there's so many elements to golf. So, I mean, obviously there's elements to every sport, but there's, short game, driving, chipping, putting. Like, there's so many different things that you need to be really good at to play at a high level. So I just think there's so many aspects, and I do think, obviously, even if you think back to clubs, like if you think back 50, 60, not even that longer, like 20 years ago, I remember getting fit for a set of clubs, and it's a fitter trying to eye the ball flight with his eyes, saying, oh yeah, that's the right amount of spin, etc. When now everything's optimized from, much younger. So these kids are coming out with the perfect equipment. I think guys back, Hickory clubs, etc., they're just testing club after club, trying to find the right club without just off feel, and there's no measuring that was actually better. It's just I found one out of a bunch that worked. So
that's so true. That's so true. So you really put a big emphasis there and make you think that the players now have just got the right clubs.
Well, just that, and then being able to optimize stuff on TrackMan straight away, and whether it's any type of 3D, like they have all that information. Is so much more available now, even than a TrackMan was to people 10 years ago. So they can practice smarter as they're getting feedback. They're not guessing as much.
I saw a video clip with Boyd Summerhays talk about once, and he said that anytime he takes on a new elite kid, so Boyd Summerhays coaches Tony Fee now. He's got 2 of the best kids in world golf and amateur golf in Patrick Summerhays and Gabrielle. Preston. Oh, sorry, Preston. Preston Summerhays and his daughter's name?
Thanks, Gabrielle, yeah.
Gabrielle.
I think it might be Gabrielle. I think.
Maybe. Anyways, he says he sends them straight to ping. Before he has a look at them. Like he said very early on, it's how important it is to get the right clubs. I saw actually a Reddit of, I think it might have been, I'm not going to say his name because I could probably get it wrong, but an Australian tour player playing in Europe. And this is no word of a lie. I read this in a golf magazine probably, I was working at Olympic Park, so let's call it 15 years ago, maybe 10 to 15 years ago. And he's an Australian golfer. They said, oh, what's been your really good start to the season? And he goes, I got fitted for clubs. Like literally.
Yeah,
he's got playing on the European tour at the time, back prior to the World Tour. And he was a stalwart of Australian golf. Played a lot in Japan, and he comes out and says that the reason I had success this year is because I got fitted for the right clubs. Yeah. That wouldn't happen today, right?
No, everyone is to a truck at every event in America, and you just getting the best stuff. It's pretty easy for them now to get you the right stuff. So
yeah. And so tell me, I want to just talk a little bit more about that in college there, right? When you're on the team. You said there's 13 players. How many people play in the team?
5 play each week. So obviously very competitive. There was 13 for 5. My first year, the next year we lost a few guys, so we were down to 9 for 5. But yeah, still obviously very competitive. We depend on the time we had available between tournaments. Some weeks you'd have 1 week off, so you might play tournament Monday, Tuesday, and then you might have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday back before you travel. You might have Saturday as well. or you could have like a 2-week break.
Yeah.
That would kind of determine how many rounds we play. So, like really, you could end up playing a lot of golf if you do a practice round Sunday, 36 Monday, 18 Tuesday, come back, and you may do qualifying Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then go again on the Saturday or Sunday.
What happens if you have
So,
your little qualifying thing at school? And let's just say, like, we know Victor Hovland's playing number one, right? Which I don't know if he did actually. I think he played on Matthew Wolf's team. But let's just say that Victor Hovland's number one, and he goes to qualifying, and he's just a bit tired and doesn't have his good day. He's still going on the team, though, right? Or he's not, because he's not top 5.
I guess probably a little bit different every team, but our coach would exempt some people from qualifying. So you may only be playing for 1 or 2 spots some week, but it would based on, let's say, your Victor Hovland. If he won the event last week and got an event started the next week, he'd go, you're sweet, you do what you need to do to get ready for the next week. But if he came, let's say, last on the team that week, you'd be back to qualifying. So, there's no really like jumping people like you came last in the team, you're still straight ahead. It was kind of, the top 2 or 3 guys, you finish top 10, you guys go to the next week, the other 2, you're back to qualifying. So,
and how did you go?
I was very lucky. I didn't miss one tournament in the 2 years. So
really? You're a flasher, mate.
I think I got off to a good start, which helps. I think I won my 3rd event I played, and obviously that's a bit of a confidence boost. And yeah, just like a mindset thing. I didn't think I was ever going to miss out. Like, don't want to sound cocky, but like, I think just winning early made me think, I can kind of do this and I'll be all right. Where if I missed the first week, missed the second week, I think then it's like that pressure on yourself. You're like, oh, am I good enough to be over here? You might be thinking, oh, I wish I was back at home. Like, I'm just sitting here going to class, doing practice, never going to play tournaments. And I think that's obviously very different. Obviously, there's tournaments in summer, etc. over there, but here you want to go in a tournament, you just pay entry and you're in for the most part. Like, the handicap ballot, where they're like, other than the holiday periods, the only way you're playing tournaments is by qualifying essentially to get into the tournament through your team. So
that's cool.
I think that's one of the things, just playing so much golf, for me, I wouldn't say I was technically better, probably worse when I left without having that coaching, but you learn to get the ball in the hole pretty quickly no matter what you're doing.
Ollie said that in a recent podcast, Ollie Neve, I don't know if you listened to it. He spoke about something that was actually quite cool. I said to him about his team there at Monavale, right, which were just a baller of a team. Like, it was, like, I was at Longy, not far from where he was, right? And they were so good. And they were just a bunch of elite ball strikers, and there was no driving range at the course. I just kind of trying to comprehend that. I'm like, hang on, that's true. There's no driving range there. It's one nearby, but they just played golf all the time, and they were flushes. It's something to think about, isn't it?
I think obviously, look at guys, everyone has their own way they like practicing. Some people just love hitting balls at the range. So I'm like playing a lot. That's the same with people on tour, but I hate hitting balls at the range, to be honest. Like, I don't like standing there beating balls too much. So
yeah,
I'm happy to chip for hours, but
same.
I don't find hitting balls at the range very fun.
I like chipping too, because I get centers of contact a little bit better, so I like chipping. People listening though, like, it doesn't surprise me you used to miss the team because you're such a baller. I remember when you won New South Wales state champs. Do you remember that? Obviously you do, because you won it, right? But you won New South Wales state champs. When was the auction for your house? Was it during that tournament?
It was, it was a 4-day event, and I was trying to buy it prior to auction and was going back and forth with someone throughout the tournament,
Yeah, and I remember you told me before you went to the tournament.
I didn't end up getting that one, but the last day of the event, I remember I was going back and forth. Obviously, not what I was playing, but in conversations.
I remember you telling me, right, this is Flitcroft. He's a trainee golf pro at Manly Golf Club, but let's be honest, right? We're doing really good because we have lots of juniors and stuff. So financially, we're a lot better off than normal trainees were going. But you said to me, Toby, I want to win this week so I can help pay for my house. I'll never forget you telling me that, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, that's a big call. And then you went out and won it. You greasy bastard. I think you, a terrible last round, wasn't it? It was like
That was a
blowing a
terrible last four
hurricane.
holes. My last four holes, I shouldn't have won, but I somehow had enough of a lead at the time to somehow get it in the clubhouse by one. I
And
remember I
people
had
who,
a,
there you go.
I think I made a, I made a bogey up the last
I think you hold a
to
little
win by
downhill start.
one, and I had about a 4-footer to win.
Yeah.
And I knew I'd been watching the scores the whole day. I knew exactly where I stood. And I think it would have been like a 2 or 3-man play, or 3 or 4-man playoff. And I just remember thinking, it's just much easier making this than having to get a playoff and win. I was like, this is my best chance to make this one just done and dusted. Like, don't let it go anymore.
And
Somehow, yeah.
I just love those scenarios, dude. Like, I remember the quote, you probably can correct me on this one. It's like Lee Trevino, and he said something like, you think it's hard playing for, $1 million. He said, try playing for $10 when you haven't got $10.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I hear stories of people like, this is my playing career, I only ever won money when I didn't need to. And when I needed to win money, I never won money. I'd be driving around to tournaments, fucking broke, going, man, I could cash in a check this week. And I just don't make any money. And then I get in a bit of a hot run. And I get to a golf course and it goes, it's all right if I don't play that well this week because I've been winning some money lately. And I just keep winning money, not winning tournaments, but winning money. And then as soon as you need win, I never could pull it out. But you just going to me, Tobes, would be good if I won this tournament this week just so I could help me buy this house.
Let me actually deposit.
Hey, so after college golf, why didn't you stay there? Why'd you come home?
I came home to go to tuba school.
That's right.
But I think part of it was probably me having gone over a little bit later. So, as I said, I went over when I was 21. My 2 best mates on the team left after my second season. And, yeah, I think just with the way uni works as well, like I transferred over there, so not everything got transferred over in terms of my subjects.
Yeah.
So it's going to be quicker for me to finish uni back home. And yeah, I just wanted to have a crack at tour school. So obviously that didn't go too well, so I ended up at MGT. But yeah, that was kind of the thought process.
That's quick. Hey, so tell me about what's the biggest thing you learned from college golf? Like, what's the biggest thing you learned from like the training side of it, from a coach's perspective?
Big thing I learned from a coaching perspective. I think, as I said, like we had some not strict, but we had like a regimented practice. But I think our coach was still very good in terms of you have your time each week to do what you need to do. And I think every single player is different, like we spoke about. Like some people like playing golf. So we could pretty much ring up. We had 7 courses we could play at. We just rang up, said, I want to come play. And they were always very, very accommodating. Let's go play. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, people just want to go to the range, shoot, putt, whatever. He was very open to, these days our practice days together. And the rest, you do what you need to do to get ready. So I think just, with every junior or adult, they're all going to have different amounts of time and commitment, etc. They want to prepare different ways. So I think just there's no hard, one way you have to practice like this.
Yeah, okay.
I do think there is a degree personally of like, things I like my players to do. So, whether that be with putting and getting on a putting mirror for 10 minutes a day and making sure, their setup is the exact same every day. Like, I think that's a really easy way, effective way of going, I need to just kind of lock in. Or for people who don't practice a lot even, who don't have a lot of time, going, if you're going to practice for 30 minutes a week, jump on your putting mirror for 10 minutes of that. Don't worry about too much. Just make sure you're getting the same setup position, same ball position, same eye position, same distance from the ball, just basic stuff. But if you can do that always the same, at least you give yourself a chance of being repeatable in what you're doing. Where, one day you're an extra inch away from the ball, your eye line changes. So then how you read the greens changes. Like, it looks different to you when you're over the ball. So I do think there's parts of, I have preferences of what I'd like to see from my students, but yeah, there's no hard, you have to do it this way.
It's interesting. Hey, tell me, when you talk about putting right there, but with the eye line, and I can't get an answer on anyone, why is it a negative to people say that your eyes can't be over the line of the ball, like past the line? Have I asked this before? Because I've asked heaps of people. No one can give me a good answer.
You have not. I probably can't give you a good answer, but
I'm like, why? Tell me why. Everyone always says you can have your eyes on the inside of the ball line, on the ball line, but not looking back at the ball line. I'm like,
yeah, I would say to everyone an inch inside to over the ball, but never over. Like, that would be my answer.
But why?
I think the easiest way to test is if you put down a ball, put an alignment stick dead center of the hole. Okay, so if you stand behind, line up your alignment stick at the hole.
Mm-hmm.
If you start, let's say, a meter inside that line, and you have your 1 meter alignment stick for let's say 3 meter putt.
Okay, yeah.
If you stand way inside and try to line that stick up at the hole, it's very, very hard to tell if it was pointing at the hole or not.
Interesting.
Okay. When you get closer, you get to a stage where you can actually go, oh, that looks like it's pointing at the hole. Okay. But I think it's very, very hard for people once they cross that to ever get the stick to look at the hole, just with how our eyes work.
That's a really good test. I thought you were going to say about testing, you'd be testing start line control. So you say you're not even talking about lining the putter up there. You're talking about just essentially looking to see if that line six lining up in the middle of the hole.
Yeah, can you, obviously you've lined up in the center, but can you get it to look like it's center, that alignment stick? So essentially, if you're tracing the line with your eyes, can you get it to look like that's pointing in the middle of the hole? And you'll find it very, very hard to tell if you're too far in. So, I like to go to people, exaggerate, stand 2 meters away. If I put it outside the hole or, either way, I guarantee you couldn't tell me which way it was pointing. But as soon as you come closer, you're going to be able to tell where it's actually pointing.
But is this as well as that we're assuming that everyone's optimized to a very square? Some people are push patterns, some people are pull patterns.
I think a lot of what people do is based on where they line up. So
interesting.
I think a lot of people miss aim and have compensation throughout their stroke due to their misalignment. So another test
you don't think chicken or the egg, you actually think it's alignment is the key indicator to the poor stroke.
I find if I tested, I would say 90% of people don't aim where they think they're aiming. And that would be the first thing I do with every putting lesson. I would test left to right, straight putt, all different putts, different distances from, not crazy long, but 3 to 12 footer. And I say, put the tee where your intended start line is. And I say 90% do not aim anywhere near that tee.
But
you'll see someone aim left of the tee for a right to left putt and block it up the hill to try to make it. Or they'll aim.
I've done that test though. I've done that test with tour players, right? Putting the tee down where they think the ball's going to go. And some of them have got fucking no idea, but they're still good putters. So I think a lot of some people.
Yeah, but they probably. You can't. I'm not saying you can't be, but you would do. I think they build that into their read, subconsciously.
Yeah.
So for them, what looks like a 1 cup break, they might start at half a cup break, but they see that green as what looks like 1 foot is really half a foot. So I just think they've got used to reading greens based on them. If they trying to aim a foot right and they started half a foot left, if you took a left to right putt and they said they were going to aim a foot left, I guarantee they're aiming a foot and a half left.
Yeah, okay. I know what you mean.
I think they just build it in to what they do.
You know what I think that is though as well, is that when you talk about that stuff is that a lot of people have never actually tested it. So it's not a very common practice to see people from, all aspects of their golf, if they're a high handicapper all the way through to it. Doesn't really happen until they start getting good at golf, that you start looking for those kind of 1 and 5 percenters, where a lot of people have just assumed that, you can get from a 10 handicap right to a 3 handicap without ever working on start line control or like understanding a read. And then all of a sudden you become to a 3 handicap and then you get a lesson from us and go, where are you aiming? Like, oh, there. They're not pal. You know what I mean? So like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. You can kind of get good without actually knowing like about it anyway. So that's interesting. That's a really cool test. People listening out there, I like that one. Put the alignment 8 in front of the green, in front of the hole, sorry, and see if you can get it in. Because I was working with a tour player, right, at an event, and I never really helped him with his putting. And he said to me, he just couldn't hold a putt, right? And he had his eyes on the inside. I was like, well, where do you like to have him? And I showed him a video and he goes, oh, the back over the ball line again.
Cambo?
And I said, what's wrong with that? And he goes, I'm not going to say his name. And I goes, what's wrong with that? And he goes, well, I got told I shouldn't have my eyes there. And I was like, well, who fucking told you that? And he goes, that. And I said, did they give you a good reason why? And he goes, no. Nah. I said, well, fucking do it. And he went out and putted the dots off. But putt dots off it. So it's like, I don't know. If someone says to you, people listen to this, and I talk about this a lot, right, is that if someone says to you, do this, ask why. And if I can't give you a good enough answer, tell them to fuck off.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, I wouldn't change it if someone putted lights out. Like, there's no point changing it just for the sake of changing it. But if they're struggling, that's probably something to look at.
What about that? What about that video of Butch Harmon put up today of Tommy Fleetwood, Dustin Johnson, and Haravana III hitting balls next to each other?
Did not see that.
So they're hitting balls, and he goes just a clinic at the academy, right? Something like that, like a bit of a tongue-in-cheek. And I think the tongue-in-cheek was actually saying all players can play it together because it was live golfers and PGA Tour play, right? And I just thought if you're sitting there behind looking, you'd be like, Haravana III, stop dragging your right foot. Dustin Johnson, your left wrist is too flexed. Tommy Fleetwood, finish off your follow-through. You know what I mean? Like you could say that to them if you wanted to. Like I'm not saying you would because obviously they're completely elite ball strikers, but it's funny because if someone ever said that to them three, they'd be like,
you ruin them.
Yeah, why? Because people come to me in the golf lesson, and it's like with you, and they say, because I do a lot of online coaching, so that the stuff comes through dialogue, like text, and they'll say, oh, I do this, I do that, I do this, I do this. So they might say, oh, I early extend, or my club rolls in on the inside, or I get too long on top of the backswing and I flip it. And I go, what's the ball doing, bro? It's like, why do you think that's bad? Like, why is all of that bad? Tell me why it's all bad, and I'll tell you if it's not bad or if it is bad. You know what I mean? People are so quick to jump on their own swing faults and not wonder what the ball's doing. Don't you reckon?
Yeah, I think a lot of, obviously, those swing faults, like early extending is probably one of the best ones, can actually help a lot of people, get into a better position. So it's from something else that's happened earlier. And if they didn't early extend, they probably did a horrible golf shot all the time. So
I found something in my ball striking the other day, actually, Flea. I found something. I hit a lot of balls at really slow speeds in here, like in my studio, like really slow, like kind of arm structure stuff, coaching. And I got to the range the other day and I said, that's it. I've had enough of hitting it like crap. But in my demonstrations and my lessons, I have been performing quite well. So I've got my lower body to be a little bit more active, to feel like I was kind of early extending a little bit, like getting my pelvis up, pushing out of my left leg a little earlier.
Yeah.
Far out, I was flushing it. And I was like, yes! Even one of my people who I teach went past, she's hitting it good. And I was like, yes, about time. It took me a while. So my feel is to try and feel like I'm early extending. But hey, This brings us to the Back to Basics putting segment, Flitty, right? Support those who support the podcast. Back to Basics putting mirrors designed by Richard Woodhouse and Grant Field. Comes with a 15-degree putting arc in there, the Pro Path putting mirror. Also comes with some gates to help you with your start line stuff, which you're talking about, right? Which is a really, really good thing. Use code TM15 to get yourself 15% off at the checkout. Harris Endicott's on the podcast lately. He uses it. Cam Smith uses it. It's one of my number one coaching tools, especially for putting lessons. That's the first place I put people. In the Back to Basics putting segment, Flitcroft, to throw this one on you, can you tell me or give us a putting tip or your best advice, or what have you got for us?
Oh, I'd probably say I've already kind of shared a little bit, but I think,
Yes.
as I said before, like the putt, I use the Back to Basics putting mirror. It's just something simple you can do every day for 10 minutes. And if I was going to go practice, you have a lot of time to practice, I'd jump on that, practice that, and then practice leg putting. I wouldn't bother from 10 to 20 feet or 8 to 20 feet. Statistically, you're not going to make that many of them anyway. So I always say, if you're good inside 5 feet, you can get it rolling online, you can still hold a 10-foot putt. But outside that, it's really getting a speed control dialed in. That's what I like to teach.
So you use the putting mirror from how far from the hole?
5-6 feet.
And that's kind of your
like
capacity?
If someone kind of groove their setup, hit a 5-6 foot putt.
Yeah.
If you're rolling that in, you're sweet. Practice that. And then other than that, I'd just be practicing your kind of leg, distance control, speed putting.
And distance control, speed putting that you're practicing there, how far are we talking?
20 feet plus.
20 feet plus. And how do you approach that? Do you use like one or two balls or one ball, putt to a circle, putt to a hole? What do you do?
I would always putt to a hole personally. I know there's a lot of different things. Putting to fringes and tees and whatnot. I always like a hole. And I've always used two balls. Like before I play, that's just something I've always done. I've always just worked on short putts. So I'll work on like a 3-4 foot putt, which I'm going to make a lot. I'm going to hold a lot, so I'm going to get some confidence.
Yep.
And then I'll work on my speed putting, and I'll never bother holing out before I play those putts. So if I hit one 5-foot pass, 6-foot pass, I won't bother hitting it. But I think you see too many people get to the putting green, they're trying to hole a 7-foot putt with a foot and a half of break before they go out. You're going to miss them all. So what's the point?
Interesting.
Like you're not doing your confidence any good. If I stand there hole, 33 footers in a row and then my speed's good, well, I'm sweet.
So when you use the Back to Basics putting mirror, when you're giving a putting lesson, what advice do you give to people? Do you film down the line, face on, and over the top?
Yeah, I was actually talking to him about this afternoon, and one of the things I was talking to him about, he was asking me how to structure his practice, and he's got a putting mirror, and I said even getting some reference points in terms of, he said he's putting really well at the moment. Okay, so I was like, all right, perfect. Like this is a good opportunity to kind of figure out what you're doing right, and that would be for him measuring how far away his toes are from the mirror. So let's say his toes are 4 inches from the mirror. If he starts struggling, he can go back and go, oh, it's putting really well. My toes are 4 inches from the mirror. They're going out to 5.
Interesting.
And then with the stance, where the ball position is. So if you're putting well, jump on something like that, the mirror, get some references. So when you practice every day, you can go, I need to be 4 inches from the mirror. The ball position's 3 inches inside my left heel and my feet are 7 inches wide or whatever it may be. But then you have something where you can kind of lock that in every day. And as you spoke about, just kind of do something repeatable every single day.
That's such gold to measure that, because when things are going well, you should measure too, just to basically give yourself that reference to come back to. I've got many students where I've got saved their best golf swing, and that we kind of might reflect back on to try and kind of get that back, especially if they go down a bit of a rabbit hole to make some changes. So when you film, do you get them to put the phone above the mirror so they can kind of see the arc of the putting stroke? Yeah,
obviously it's pretty hard to get straight, ideally, straight above, but kind of just behind where they're going to see how that putter, the line on their putter is matching up with that green line where that stroke should be going back on the back to basics mirror.
And when you get someone to, trying to quantify their setup position and create some consistency around that, because it's amazing how quickly our setups can change without us being on top of it. Do you have like a pre-shot, like do you encourage people to have like a pre-shot set before they hit a putt?
What do you mean by
Like a little rehearsal, like to put the putter down, put the feet the same distance apart?
I think anyone good will naturally do it, but I think you can have some sort of routine. I don't really care what it is, as long as it allows you to get back into the same position every time. So I couldn't care how you do it, to be honest. Like, if you can get set up exactly the same every time, I don't care if you go feet first, putter first, whatever that may be, as long as it's consistent.
I love that. Well, that brings us to the end of the Back to Basics putting segment. Support those who support the podcast, been big supporters of the podcast, and I think it's the number one training aid out there. It's a must-have for a golf coach, give you some reference in regards to even when giving a golf lesson or when you're a student, you can see the arc of the putting stroke and you can see exactly where it's breaking down in relationship to the stuff that's on top of the mirror. It's not like your standard mirror. It can measure face angle the whole way through. And support those who support the podcast. TM15 discount code is below. And thanks for that from the Back to Basics putting segment. Some gold there from Flitcroft. You shared some gold earlier about the alignment aid, which I'm actually staring at my alignment aids now coming out of my Callaway golf bag there, which I'm excited to jump on the putting green and give it a bit of a go. Hey, tell me, I've got some little throwaway questions here, Flitty, right, that I want to become normal part of the podcast, which I used to have. I used to have stuff on the podcast, some stuff like what's your favourite four, like who would be your best four ball? And when I stopped doing it, people kept pestering me about it. Like, you didn't ask so-and-so about their favourite four ball, but I've gone away from that, and I've got some kind of rock solid ones here. And it's a bit of a topic of discussion, right? And I don't know if I have a clean answer on it. I'll probably get shifted every time someone tells me. But does the club control the body, or does the body control the club?
I'm going to say the body controls the club.
I had a feeling you'd say that. Now, can you tell me why?
I think based on, if you even look at setup, so before you even start moving the club, how you set up is going to control what your body will want to do.
Yep.
And then obviously what your body wants to do will control the club, what it wants to do. So, I think it's kind of like I always think of working like ground up in terms of swing.
Yes.
So, set up obviously, but then lower body's going to change what your top half will do, what your arms will do, your wrists, etc. So that's kind of how I like to work. I guess big muscles first, but I'd definitely say body for me. I think if you can get the body moving properly, the club will naturally follow without having to try to manipulate it too much.
And people listen to this, right? The reason why I reference this, I want you guys to think about this, right? It's when we get to P3, lead arm level to the ground in the backswing, right? And when you think about the shaft orientation from down the line. Now, from down the line, we'll generally see that shaft line looking somewhere near just inside the ball line for most elite golfers. Now, when you think about, right, if you get that super flat early, you'll often see that with super flat shoulders. So at left arm level to the ground, if we see that club rolled over and say that shaft is looking a lot over the ball line from down the line, right, you'll see that lead shoulder come up really high at the same time, right? They'll lose their shoulder tilts. So, I think the question is around it, is the club control the body control the club? That if you get through those early stages of the takeaway and that club starts to roll over, it can actually start to manipulate, or the club or the body's manipulating whatever's happening here, that lead shoulder coming up high. Do you see where I'm coming from that, Flitty?
I do, but I also feel like setup, I feel like body manipulates that before it gets to that stage. That's what I would say. That's my, if you're set up, if you bent to over, you might kind of pull your arms across you to counterbalance you. Or, I think a lot, setup is probably the most underrated thing for people.
Hugely. It's how...
But
It's how we change any ball flight we want for any good player. We change a setup.
Yeah. So I just think like people get themselves in a setup where they can't move athletically, they can't do things because they've put themselves in a really poor position before they even try to move the golf club.
Interesting. So what you're saying is, say, for instance, that the club is creating momentum and pulling that person's lead shoulder up, or the lead shoulder's pulling it up. You're blaming something before that, which is body related, which is controlling the club to do that.
Yes, that's what I'll go for.
Fair enough.
Although you're obviously going to get mixed reviews or mixed comments, but
I'm
yeah, I would
interested to
say
see how it goes. I'm going to throw it out there. I've seen the discussion come up before in topics and forums and stuff, so I'm excited to see how we go with that one there. All right, next question. What's the best advice you've ever received?
do something you love.
Interesting. And you're talking about work-related stuff there?
Yeah, work, anything. Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, work, like I never thought I'd get into golf, but I guess I love golf and I'm very happy I've kind of gone down the path I am now. Never thought 15 years ago it'd be this case, like when I wanted to play, but I guess when I finished my uni degree, it's like, oh, you can get in the office. I was like, no chance.
Yes.
So, much happier doing what I'm doing now than, some people might love sitting in the office, crunchy numbers, whatever, but that's just not me. So,
Yes.
do something that you love and it won't be a chore.
I would agree with that. And I think as well as that people listening to this is they're like, oh, I love doing this. I think if you start it as your side hustle, whatever it is that you love, and keep pushing at it as your side hustle, and then it will eventually take over as your main hustle. But unfortunately, that side hustle has to be done after hours, in the grind and getting yourself ready. And I say to all my friends, and it's just a throwaway line I've always said, is that if you're passionate about selling fucking tea towels, I can help you make a career out of selling tea towels. If you're into it, you can probably make a lot of money on Amazon selling tea towels. Anyways, what's the worst advice you've ever received?
Worst advice:
Go to uni.
keep your head down.
Keep your head down. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't like that one. I don't like that one for golfers.
Tell me why.
I think it limits how your body can turn, put strain on your neck. You can't release your whole body properly. But you'll hear. I think you need to stay in your posture, etc. But I think anytime you get a newer golfer topping the ball, whatever, they'll say, keep your head down. That's probably the worst thing that they could do to try to transfer their weight, get forward to actually help them hit down the ball.
I would agree. Actually, I don't. Yes, I understand where you're coming from. Exactly. I've got Mr. Alex Moore coming on the podcast tomorrow, Morad golf instructor, and he would be saying probably the opposite. But I know what you mean. Right?
In saying that,
He's
that's
a method
for
instructor. Yes.
That's for like a beginner golfer. Like
Yeah, I get
obviously
you.
depending on race patterns, etc. That's going to change for better players. But I think for a general not good or beginner golfer,
Yes.
that's probably the worst thing they can get in their head is watch the ball, like keep your head down.
Yes. No, I agree. And, Alex is a great golf instructor. He's a great golf instructor. And, David Duval's a great player and he didn't look at the ball at contact, right? So many ways to do it. And you teach what you know. So what Will was saying there, right? People say keep your head down and, we also hear that that's, really poor advice in a lot of circumstances, right? A lot of cases, especially people who have poor neck mobility, for sure. And neck connecting to the upper thoracic, so not getting an extension in the back of the spine. So the reason to why that can be negative is that it can limit your rotation in the backswing, it can limit your rotation through the ball, and it can also limit your ability to extend as well through the ball. So I can understand your reasoning to why it can be the worst advice you've ever received. All right, 2 more questions. The best golf shot you've ever hit and the worst golf shot you've ever hit.
The best,
4-foot
I
New
hit
South Wales champs.
to the 10th hole
Whereabouts?
at Belmont.
Mm-hmm.
First hole was actually second round of a tournament, the Lake Macquarie, which used to be
Yep.
big tournament. Rory's played there, Jason Day, etc.
Yes.
And par 5 knocked it in for 2 to start the day. So
Are you
3 under through 1 was a pretty good way to get the round started.
There you go.
And the second best was probably I had another albatross about 4 weeks before that. So I had two in about a month, and I don't think I'll ever have one again. But yeah,
What's the worst shot you ever hit?
actually, as you know, I don't play a whole lot of golf, but just comes to mind. I was playing in a pro-am at Linwood end of last year, and I was going pretty well, and I had a shank off a par three, and there's like water hazard,
Yeah.
and I've actually shanked it like over the water hazard OB. So it's pretty bad. I like
Uh,
a shank when I practice, but not normally on course too much.
that's interesting. That's interesting. Hey, you know when you talk about albatross story, right? I remember when I was playing with well, I used to hang out with Danny Vera a lot, right? And I was playing with him once at Terry Hills, and he was telling me a story, and he was playing the par five. I'm going to call it up the very back corner there, like maybe
15.
15. Yeah, 15, 16. Yeah, 15, right? And he's playing there with members, and he walks up to his and what happened is we walked up to his ball, and he just hit his second shot into the hole, right into the green. I said, "Geez, that was a good shot." And he goes, "It wasn't as good as a shot I hit in Japan last week. I holed out for two on an albatross on a par five." He walked up to the hole. Guess what? It was in the hole.
Another one.
Yeah, two and a.
I actually looked for my ball for quite a while. So there was spotters. There was a spotter on the green,
Yeah,
and he's like, I got up there, couldn't see my ball anywhere. I was like, "Did you see it?" Like he goes, "No, I heard it." And like, there's all this scrub over the back of the green, like tea tree. I was like, "Sweet!" Like I just flushed one over the green.
Yep.
Looking over there, couldn't find it. And I was like, "Oh, like." I got 30 seconds left. Where I like kind of start walking back down to the fairway, almost put my head, look in the hole. It's there. I was like, "How can I see it, mate?"
And how many times do we check the hole and it's never in there?
I know. Then check it till 4 minutes later.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Hey, you actually before we went on the podcast, you put a little post out on Instagram. I saw it with some questions. You got some replies. Actually, I got one of you too as well. Let me have a look. I got them here. Let's have a look. I got one here from a guy named Toby. He follows the podcast.
Toby
does
some
golf.
lessons with it.
Toby does golf. Do you know this guy?
I do know this guy. He comes to Narrabeen.
How important is the club fitting, which we've discussed?
Well, Toby is going to be hoping I say extremely because he just got a club fitting and he just got a new set of clubs. So he was a little bit concerned when he got his new set yesterday and he didn't hit them quite as well, but I got a message today saying they're unreal. So, yeah, as discussed before, I'd say extremely important.
Yes.
Not just for good golfers, for everyone. I think it can help a less good golfer a lot.
I think it actually helps a less golfer more.
Yeah.
More. All right.
Yeah.
Josh George, if you're struggling during a round, do you make adjustments on the course or do you just stay on your path? If you make adjustments, what might they be without getting too out of sync? So if your game's gone to shit, what should you do during a round?
Again, I was talking to another client about this today, and I think it's important to have like a practice rehearsal, a thought, etc., to go back to when you're off. So finding something that, if a drill swing that you feel comfortable. Like I think you need to do what you can do to kind of get through the rounds. Whether that's normally little draws and you're just going to get little cuts the whole time, whatever. But I think having something where you go, all right, I'm out of sorts, like try to realise it pretty quickly. Obviously, a few bad shots in a row, and knowing like a feeling that you can go back to or a practice swing. Obviously, not just like 100% full on practice swing, but like a drill kind of swing where you can try to get some feels back around what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I agree with that. I even have some like some of my students. One of them had a win actually up at Bonneville, and we call it his reset swing. He has a reset swing, which is like a club or two clubs more, and it's P3 to P9. That's his reset swing he goes to. Scotty Stallings talks about That's why he puts his tee really low when he's lost a few drivers.
With driver.
Tee goes straight down. Straight down, right? So it's also, I guess, A, acknowledging that you're a little bit off track and probably understanding that, B, I can't shoot for some flags because I'm not really quite in today. So adjusting that as well and finding that feel and that reset swing to go to without trying to veer into anything new. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Not because you're
Yeah, I
playing
think
for
going
what
back to what you know,
Yeah.
it's almost like your safety blanket of what you know you can kind of do, or a feeling that is not new and you might know you need to feel that a little bit more.
All right, so Toby Does Golf has just littered the inbox, right? He's got a great name, and I like his eagerness, but I'm going to just pick one of these questions here. This is you, a bit of a Titleist nerd you are. When should someone consider changing from an improvement iron?
When they're,
Just get
I
fitted.
think it's pretty hard black and white one, to be honest. Like you could get a great golfer who doesn't have the club head speed.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit older, who they could be a 10 handicapper, but a game improvement iron is going to be a lot more beneficial for them in terms of getting some more distance, just since they don't have that speed anymore. So I think it's a very hard black and white one, personally.
I agree.
In terms of, you get to this handicap, that means you need game improvement. There's guys on the PGA Tour who use game improvement almost irons in the longer clubs, and they're the best in the world. So I don't think it's personal what works for you, what you're comfortable with, and what you can hit the best golf shots with.
And KJ Choi won the Players, mate, with a set of ping G15s, I'm pretty sure.
Why Yang beating Tiger, just hitting 27 hybrids around the course? Like,
Sam
every club in the bay
Nolan.
was a hybrid.
Do you know Sam Nolan?
I do know Sam Nolan. Very, very good friend of mine. One of my closest friends.
What to focus on getting from mid-handicap to single figures?
Kind of going to go two parts. I think most people, the easiest would be short game. If they improve that, like that would. But in general, like, this is more difficult. But the more greens you hit, that's the easiest way to drop scores.
Greens.
Like, that's the easiest way to, like, if you hit greens, your scores will come down. Like, if you hit 5 more greens, your scores will come down massively. Or 3 even. Like, it's just hitting greens. Like, you look at everyone who's been on tour for a long time, and it's greens and reg.
I think people, obviously I'm big in statistics and stuff like that. I use Draw More Circles, big popular one that I use, partners with Draw More Circles, but people just overlook hitting greens in regulation. I have a formula, right, on my iPad here that I use, and I get people to do their stats for me. And whenever they hit a certain amount of greens, it's kind of like 9 greens is 75 to 79, I think. And then it's like 11 greens. It gives a breakdown for you, right? It's always spot on. It's always spot on. No matter what someone scores, there's always those greens. So I think we can overcomplicate it. Hit more freaking greens and your scores will come down, I promise you. Right?
Yeah.
And I understand, right, people listen to this, there's 1%ers out there and, statistics might show the PGA Tour where you can hit less greens but hit closer on a few times, that he might get a better score. But I'm telling you, overall, hit more greens, you'll shoot lower scores for a recreational golfer. Do you know a guy named Simon Parsons?
I do.
All your buddies are hitting you up.
Good, isn't it? Supporting
Support those who support the podcast. Speed training.
That's it.
Impact on other clubs besides the driver. Might just have... better read this before I read it. Okay, speed training. Speed training, impact on other clubs besides the driver. So what he's saying there is that if he's going 100 mile an hour, can it impact his irons if he's doing speed training with his driver?
I think speed training is something that you use to increase your baseline, as opposed to that's how fast you're going to swing it on course. So it's beneficial to be able to max out at, let's say, 130 miles per hour, but you're never going to play at that. So I think one of the benefits of having more speed, just being able to cruise at 85% speed and still hit it a reasonable distance.
Yes.
So yeah, like if you can have the ability to hit your 7-iron 190 yards as opposed to 170, then you can cruise at 180. So I think that's where it's kind of learning to move it fast so you don't have to max out essentially.
I think it's got to be very monitored speed training, because I found out that some of my students were doing speed training, with something else, without letting me know through some communication, and a lot of trail side bend end up happening out of nowhere, club getting stuck under because they're trying to rip this thing super fast. There's kind of their natural instincts come in. They're like, I'm going to fucking smash it. So they get in a trail side bend and they just start whipping it under and trying to generate this energy. And they're doing it, they're creating big hooks and blocks, right? But they're doing it from a primal instinct. I'm going to try and move this way to create this energy, and it's not within proper technique. So I have seen speed training, I'm not going to use the term ruin, but swing technique has been neglected when speed training has been in training. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. Like, they are two separate things that, like, in order to gain the most out of speed training, you want no technique when you're doing it. So it's kind of a hard, like, I guess, if you're trying to work on someone on some new moves, but then they're doing speed training, which is going to just more work around how fast can they move it as opposed to the moves you're trying to get them.
Yeah,
It's probably a little bit hard to kind of put the two together. Where if they had developed, you're pretty happy with sound swing that you got them with, doing some speed training whilst they're not trying to make changes at the same time, I think will be more beneficial.
I agree. I've actually seen people, I think speed training, yes, has been a big thing in the PGA Tour, but I think it's kind of gone down a little bit. People have just given it, they're still all speed training, but it's not the big buzz anymore, right? It's just
people. Well, you look at Bryson, kind of come off a little bit. Rory kind of tried to go fast for a while and then goes, I can't play like this, came back down a little bit. And that's kind of interesting with all like the new rollback ball, etc. Like, how much are they going to try to increase speed to get the more distance versus, lose more accuracy, or I don't know, it's kind of like a fine line. Even if they didn't roll back the ball, there's only like a limit really. If you put a line in the sand now, they're kind of limiting themselves how far they can hit. Like, they can all hit it further, but they're like, we can't actually play well once we get past it. So I don't know, the rollbacks will be interesting off topic, but yeah, I think they've almost like capped themselves at like, we can't play above this speed. Like, once you get above 190, it's like you can't really play at a high level.
What do you think about the rollback?
I think it's
just a joke.
I'm glad they've done the amateur and pros together. Like, I would think it's too hard. I know they do it in baseball, but I think it's a little bit different. I think it'd be too hard for an elite amateur to go, when do I switch?
Yeah.
Like, you're playing tournaments, you're playing but like, do they play USM with the rollback ball or not?
But I understand that you agree with them doing that, but what do you think about them actually rolling it back?
I'll just leave it, to be honest. Leave it as it is right now. That's what I'm saying, like, with the...
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Rory, etc. Like, they're kind of limiting it now, where they're going, we can't actually play above this ball speed anyway. So, like, they say they'll get quicker, but I think they've kind of put the line in the sand of players where it's not beneficial to go faster than we're going already.
I know. Well, Bryson was doing all that testing, wasn't he, with his spin rates, right? Like, it's so hard to... once you get up there around that 190 ball speed, then you start carrying it like 350, and then you're so far offline. But to me, I just think it's crazy. I've seen some statistics out there. It's barely even gone any further. Someone said, like, they showed a statistic of the last 7 years, the PGA Tour driving average 7 years ago to what it is now, and it's like fucking nothing. It's like under 10 yards difference. And they're like, oh, I'm glad we're rolling the fucking ball back. It's like,
I think that also comes back to again, like when we spoke about club fitting and TrackMan, etc. Like it's just easier to be like the technology in terms of like that stuff has helped a lot. Like you look at the young guys coming out, like everything's just been optimized from an earlier age.
But why does it matter if there's 1 billion golfers in the world or something, right? And there is 180 on the PGA Tour. There's about 60 on the Live Tour. And there's about 180 on the DP World Tour. Golfers. Let's just say there is 1,000 golfers out there making a good living, right? Out of playing golf professionally. Out of 1 billion.
If you're lucky, I reckon.
Yeah. And we're gonna roll it back. Yeah, exactly. And we're gonna roll it back because a handful of those hit it too far.
Yeah.
Like what? That's insane.
Who said that they don't like watching them hit drives 350 anyway? Everyone loves watching that.
Oh, and it's like, oh my God, this TV is so bad because the PGA Tour, they finished 22 under this week. Oh my God, it should have been 16 under. Oh my God. No one's ever said that. No. Anyways, hey, Flitcroft, it's been fun. Thank you for coming on the Golf Coach podcast, mate. It's been fun.
Thanks for the invite. I know you get a lot of fantastic guests on here, and I'm an avid listener, so yeah, very, very honoured to be on your show.
Appreciate you coming on. Get lots of people who actually asked to come on the podcast. If I haven't got back to you, I do apologise. I do try to get back to people who are interested in coming on. But if you've got something to share and you think that you've got some good value, some point of difference, it'd be fantastic to have you on here. Flitcroft, I wish you nothing but the best, mate. 20 days until baby's coming.
That's
Life
it.
just
very,
gets started.
Very fast approaching.
Life gets started. So support those who support the podcast. Skillers, you want to take upon their offer. As I said, back to basics putting segment, TM15 for 15% off. If you're interested in partnering up with the podcast, please jump in my email down below, toby@tmgolf.com.au. Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Toby.